not just a Rocky reference. It's also the name of my middle sister. And many times growing up, I had to call out that name to save my life. We had a bit of a tense relationship, you could say. When I was a baby, my nickname was Fat Boy. And later on, Wiener. I was the fourth daughter. I think they wanted a son. But my sister, 2 years older than me, when I was, roughly one, she'd stroll up to me and she'd see me just, sitting down on the ground, and she'd find a little fat fold and pinch me really hard until I would wail and blubber and cry. And she'd run away and watch as Mom would wonder why her youngest daughter was such a pain in the ass. And, it didn't get much better when she got lifeguard training, because she knew the exact amount of time she could hold my head underwater before she had to let me up for air. You could say our relationship was a little bit tense growing up. I didn't quite know whether she liked me. Family or foe, I didn't know. But in the later years, when she went off to university, we actually improved our relationship quite a bit. So much so that when I was seeking out a friend to take me to Europe, I had booked my ticket and a friend of mine had bailed. I asked my sister Adrian, and she, much to my surprise, said she'd go. It was a train trip. Several long-haul train rides with my sister, and I thought, I wonder how this is going to turn out. I remember sitting down on our first long-haul train trip from France into Spain. And I got out my travel book and I looked at her and I said, Adrian, what's the thing you're most excited about on this trip? I don't talk on trains. Well, that was the first of 6 8+ hour train rides that we were about to experience together, and I had a really full scrapbook at the end of it. A terribly done scrapbook, but nonetheless. Still, we got out of that trip feeling a little bit closer. Part of that was, of course, escaping the Austrian prison guards in Munich, Germany, but that's another story. Later on, I got a job in China. Actually, Macau, China, and I extended an invitation to all my friends and family and said, please, please come and join me. I would love to go on a trip with you. And you can guess who came along the first summer. It was my sister, Adrian! Well, after our train trip, I thought, I wonder how it's going to work in Asia. But I was excited, and when she arrived, we got on a plane ride to Beijing. Me, every once in a while, having to get up and going to the bathroom, going back, sitting in my chair, going back and going to the bathroom. And she looked at me a little concerned. She was in nursing school at the time. She said, are you okay? I said, a couple of days ago, I had a urinary tract infection. I'll be fine. We get to the hostel. We don't sleep much that night because I'm going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, trying to squeeze urine from my bladder. Yeah, it's not a pretty picture. It was painful. And so our first day in Beijing wasn't a tour of the Summer Palace or anything quite so interesting, except for the squatty potties anywhere I could find them. And it got to the point where she was really worried about me. And she did a little bit of an examination and said, Pamela, your left flank is inflamed. You're going to have to go to the emerge. And so we did. We get into a taxi, and she's nervous. She's never been to a hospital in Asia, and frankly, I hadn't either. But everything worked out okay. I got antibiotics, and within 8 hours, I felt great and ready to get on to our most epic adventure yet, the Great Wall of China. We arrive and start our journey, and we read in the guidebook that the section of the wall that we had chosen was actually one of the hardest sections you could go. And when we make our way up the first set of stairs and starting to go along the rocky wall, there's a bunch of Mongolian guides lugging 10-pound books of photographs that we'll be taking ourselves on the trip along the wall. It was very weird. And they said, we'll go with you, we'll go with you. And we said, no, we can do this ourselves. And so we made our way, walking up and down and turning all along the path of the wall. And truly, it is great. I actually think it's the fantastic Wall of China, personally, but adjectives are adjectives, and you can choose which one you like. It was beautiful. And I kept walking and walking and walking. And then I looked behind me. Adrian was lagging behind. One point, I saw her. She was bent over. Her shirt was a deeper shade of red, stained from her sweat. She was breathing heavily. She wasn't doing well, and I was worried about her. Our roles had reversed, but Adrian was proud. I walked over to her and I said, "Are you okay?" Yeah, I'm fine. You keep going." And so we kept trudging, and we'd go up the stairs into a guard tower, look around, and then down the other side, and then walking. Finally, we get to this one guard tower. We walk up the stairs, we go inside, and there's a Belgian couple just ahead of us. And they're looking over at the place you would exit to go down the stairs and continue along the wall. And they were talking and looking very concerned. And Adrian and I walked over, and we could see there was no stairwell down. There was just about a 7-8 foot drop. And then to the left, Mongolia. So it wasn't necessarily something we were looking forward to traversing. We looked ahead down the wall, and we could see that other people were walking, and so clearly they had made it. The Belgian man jumped down and landed with a big thud. He then turned back and he motioned to his wife, and she sat down on the edge and scooched over, and then she sort of dropped, and he caught her on her waist. And he said, "I'll help you too," and I did the same thing. I went down on my bottom, I scooched to the edge, and I sort of jumped, and he caught me on the waist. And then we looked up, and my sister is standing there. Sweat, heaving, tired. She's a big woman, and she does not really have a lot of faith in this tiny Belgian man. "I can do it myself," she says. I look at her, and she looks at me, and there's this moment our eyes lock. And then she starts the same way we do. She scooches to the edge, and she's about to jump when last minute she decides to twist in the air, her head hits against the wall, and she falls until the Belgian man reaches his hand out. I cry, "Adrian!" Just before, in seconds, she would have fallen off the Great Wall of China. He yanks her up, dragging her. She's on the ground, and I'm worried. Is she okay? She hit her head pretty hard. And she looks up at me. "I feel great." There's blood dripping down her face. And then she zooms ahead of me. She's like, "Let's get going." And adrenaline's pumping through her body, and she is taking that wall by storm. No one's gonna stop her. I have to chase after her. I'm out of breath. She's looking back at me. She says, "Hey, are you okay, Pamela?" "Yeah, keep going. I'll catch up." We get to a zip line. We zoom down. We feast on dim sum. And we survived. The reason I tell this story tonight is because it's a love story about my sister Adrian. Family or foe? No. Family and friend. And since that time, we have depended on each other more than just taking each other to emerge or watching as a Belgian man saves her from the wall. She is a friend of mine, and I think everyone in this room would be lucky to have an Adrian. And if you do, be proud and shout her name. Adrian! Thank you.